I came back to my family's mountain expecting peace and quiet, but instead I found 20 ugly rental cabins slapped together on my land and the HOA president standing behind them. My grandpa's ridge. The place he swore would always stay in the family had been hijacked, and the woman responsible looked me straight in the eye and told me to get lost. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about property, it was war. I should back up. I'm Jack Mercer, construction guy by trade, calm most days, stubborn every day. My truck rattled up that gravel road the way it always had, 10 years old and dented but faithful. The air smelled like pine, sharp and clean, the kind that makes your chest ache in a good way. That mountain had been my family's for a century. My grandpa carved that road with his own 2 hands. After 6 months away on a job, I thought I'd get to rest on the old porch swing, watch the valley turn gold at sunset. Instead, I slammed the brakes when the view opened up. Where the clearing should have been 20 cabins, raw lumber, and mud machines churning the ground. A sign stuck in the dirt read Sampson Ridge Estates, an exclusive mountain community. Sampson. That name hit me like a hammer. Karen Sampson Queen Bee of the Valley HOA woman who treated people like roadblocks and rules like suggestions. And now she'd planted her flag on my ridge. Standing in the road was a guy in a security uniform, if you can call it that. Shirt too tight. Badge straight out of a toy store, police stitched across a cap that didn't fit. He lifted a hand like he owned the place and squeaked private property. Turn around. Funny thing about me, I don't scare easy. Private property, huh? I said. Yeah, mine. All of it. He smirked, hand twitching toward a taser on his hip. I told him I'd be happy to call Sheriff Reed. Real sheriff, not this clown show. And suddenly his face turned the color of skim milk. A few minutes later, Reed's cruiser pulled up solid as the mountain itself. He stripped the fake badge right off that guy's chest. That was my first hint. Karen wasn't just playing dirty, she was playing criminal. And then she arrived. Golf cart, perfect blonde hair. Designer vest, a smile, sharp as broken glass. "Sheriff, is there a problem?" she purred. She handed over a deed, claiming the land was hers now. My grandpa's name scrawled at the bottom, signature shaking in a way that looked rehearsed. The sale dated 2 days after we buried him. My stomach turned cold. She'd forged it, no doubt in my mind. Reed's hands were tied. "Civil matter," he said. "You'll need a judge." Karen's grin stretched wider. She turned her cart back toward the cabins, leaving me standing there with rage pounding in my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt powerless. I wanted to believe the system would save me, but looking at that paper I realized the system was what she used to steal. I called my Uncle Dave, old mechanic gruff as they come. He listened to me rant, then said, "Kid, your grandpa always said that woman had the morals of a rattlesnake. You know how to build things, Jack. You know how to tear 'em down, too. Find the cracks." That night I stared at the forged deed in a cheap motel room, papers spread like battle maps across the table. I felt the doubt gnawing. Maybe I was in over my head. Maybe Karen was too big, too slippery. What if the judge didn't care? What if the money smoothed everything over? I almost wanted to walk away to forget the mountain and save myself the heartbreak. But then I heard my grandpa's voice, steady, rough. "Don't back down, not on what's ours." So I didn't. Frank Delgado, property lawyer with a beard full of gray and eyes sharp enough to cut glass, leaned back in his office chair after I told him the story. 2 days after the funeral, he said, "That's not a clerical delay, that's felony fraud." We hit the county recorder's office, dug into files, and found the notary stamp belonged to a man who'd retired 2 years earlier. His stamp had been stolen. My grandpa's signature forged. And Karen had done it not just to me, she'd pulled the same trick on other families. That was the crack I needed. But it wasn't enough to win. Karen had paperwork. Judges love paperwork. So I turned to what I knew best: construction. I sat up with binoculars on a ridge and watched her cabins like a hawk. What I saw chilled me: propane lines snaking across the ground, exposed, waiting for a spark. Decks with no diagonal bracing, just flimsy diving boards ready to snap. No septic systems, she was dumping gray water into the mountain. It wasn't just theft, It was a death trap. I called Frank. "I need a bigger hammer," I said. He made a call to D.A. Patel, a young prosecutor with fire in his eyes. Patel didn't waste words. Public safety trumps paperwork. We'll hit her where she's weakest. Next morning, a convoy rolled up the Mountain Fire Marshal Building Inspector Health Department, Patel, Frank, and me. Karen strutted out of her main cabin, coffee mug in hand, smile gone the second she saw the warrant. She screamed harassment, but the law was on our side. Within hours, every cabin had a bright red tag slapped on the door. Unsafe for human occupancy. Families were evacuated, vacationers furious, Karen's cash flow strangled in a single morning. She stood on the porch trembling with rage, spit words like poison. "You will regret this, Mercer. I will bury you." Thing is, I wasn't done yet. The blizzard hit that night, worst storm in a decade. Roads closed, snow piling 3 feet deep. I stayed on the overlook, watching her empire go dark. That's when the scanner crackled, a mother's voice panicked from cabin 7. "Gas leak. Baby not breathing right." My blood went ice cold. I threw the truck in gear, crawling up that mountain through whiteout. Took an hour to drive what should have taken 10 minutes. Found the cabin propane stench thick enough to choke. I yanked open the door, pulled the family out, got them warm in my truck, then traced the leak with a flashlight. The main valve at the 1,000-gallon tank was frozen solid. I cranked it with a pipe wrench until it shrieked and shut down. When I turned around, my beam hit her Karen standing on her porch in a designer parka, eyes blazing like she wanted me dead. She wasn't relieved I'd just saved her whole ridge from exploding. She was furious it was me who did it. At dawn, she trudged through the snow to my truck. Her voice was all business, no shame. "You've made your point. You cost me a fortune. Congratulations, but a legal fight will ruin us both." "I have a better idea." I didn't move. I let her circle like a shark. $500,000, she whispered. "Cash. You sign a quitclaim deed, walk away, and this all disappears." She thought she could buy me off. Thought the mountain had a price tag. What she didn't know, I had my phone recording in my pocket. Every word. I pushed her a little further, asked why the first deed wasn't enough. She rolled her eyes like I was stupid. The first deed was a necessary business expense. This one makes it clean. That was it. The confession. The bribe. The forgery. I stopped the recording and pressed play. Her own voice filled the frozen air. $500,000. The first deed was a necessary business expense. She went pale as snow. She realized she'd stepped into her own trap. Courtroom. A few weeks later. Karen sat there in her gray suit, hands shaking, trying to look like she wasn't crumbling. The judge barely hid her disgust as Frank laid out the evidence: fraudulent deed, stolen notary stamp, bribery, recording unsafe cabins. Karen's high-priced lawyer stammered about misunderstandings. The judge cut him off cold. "This is not a misunderstanding. This is fraud." And then the hammer dropped. The deed nullified land restored to me every dime. Karen made, seized every cabin, ordered demolished. And Patel stood listing charges one by one: fraud, forgery, bribery, reckless endangerment, racketeering. The bailiff cuffed her right there in front of everyone. The sharp click of metal was the sound of her empire collapsing. I didn't celebrate, I just breathed. My land was mine again. Her kingdom of lies gone. The lesson: when someone tries to bury you in paper and intimidation, you fight back with facts, with proof. With everything they never expected you to hold on to. You don't back down.